spoke with Oregon Senate Minority Leader Daniel Bonham, who also expressed concerns about safety.
He brought up the RNC convention this upcoming week and the safety concerns now surrounding that massive event centered around the former president.
Yeah, he said that he still has faith in the security there, despite today's shooting, which he called incredibly alarming and gut-wrenching.
Yeah, a rooftop 150 yards away, I would have thought would have had security, making sure that no one was either on the roof or that security themselves were on the roof. A little shocked that that happened. But simultaneously, I think, again, it's early to cast aspersions on the security team and the measures that they took. I think we'll find out more in the near future and in days to come. But certainly, I know it's something everybody's going to question, is what was Secret Service doing? Why was this rooftop accessible? I think those are valid questions and important questions that we should want to know the answers to. This was just, it's a sad day. It's a sobering day. The world is affected. The whole United States is affected. I hope the common bond that makes us Americans brings us together in a moment like this. That's what I hope. I hope it unifies us and doesn't further divide us.
And we have more reaction coming in from politicians in our area.
Lawmakers from Oregon and Washington are speaking out, condemning the violence. In a statement, Oregon House Republican leader Jeff Helfrich said, quote, "Our prayers are with President Trump. Democrats not only need to denounce this despicable act of violence, they must also consider how their over-the-top partisan rhetoric about fake threats to democracy have contributed to this. We settle disputes in this country with our votes, not violence."
In a statement, Washington U.S. Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez said, quote, "I am praying for the health and safety of former President Donald Trump and everyone else in Butler, and I hope the perpetrator of this heinous act is swiftly apprehended by law enforcement. There is no room in America for political violence of any kind against anyone for any reason."
And locally, the last time Donald Trump brought his campaign to Oregon was May 6th of 2016. He visited Eugene, attracting thousands to the Lane Event Center. Oregon State Police and other officials were on hand for that event. Those attending had to go through metal detectors before they were allowed inside.